On the bench today we have probably my favorite AM only 40 channel CB radio that was ever made, and that's the Motorola CM540. So the customer had this one sent in to get gone over, and as if the radio itself is not rare enough, he sent two of them. So twins. Now this one's about mint. This one's actually in very good condition. The covers are nice. Both radios were completely unmodified. I don't think the covers have ever been off of them. The only flaws this one has, as you can see, the chrome is starting to bubble on the bezel. Other than that, the radio, it's also in mint condition. I'm pretty sure I've done a video on one of these before and described them. The main reasons I like this, it actually has several features I really like on it. For starters, it has scan. You can store up to... Actually, I'd almost have to play with that. I can't remember if you can store all 40 channels or not. I'd actually have to play with it. It's been so long since I actually played with that. Anytime I use mine, I only store a couple local channels. But it has memory channels, and of course you can scan them. But one of the big advantages of it is it scans so fast. A lot of these radios, modern radios, I'm talking that are made today, microprocessor controlled, scan, I swear, 5 to 10 times slower than this thing. Some of them are just ridiculously slow in their scan rate. This is an old school radio. This does not have a microprocessor. This is done with an Eeprom. So, it doesn't get much older than this when it comes to scanning. And this thing just smokes a lot of modern radios on its scan speed. I like that. The next thing is it has most radios, your normal control complement, you'd have your normal switches, but your normal control complement would usually encompass a volume, a squelch, and an RF gain. This has two additional controls that most radios you're never going to see or going to have. It has an adjustable IF gain, so the intermediate frequency, and it also has an adjustable ANL. Now, most people are probably familiar with something like a flip switch for an ANL control. Now, this has what they call EXTD. That's actually part of the noise blanker circuit, so up is on for the noise blanker. And it has a very good noise blanker, but it also has a very good ANL, but it's adjustable. So you can turn it up and down, and that's what makes these such superb listeners on AM. Having an RF gain, which that's not so much, but the adjustable IF gain and the adjustable ANL, between these three controls, you can block out a lot of background noise. And I've shown that in another video where if you play with it, you get it just to the point where you can still clearly hear the person you want to listen to, but you can pretty much blank out all the background noise. And a lot of that has to do partially with the IF gain, because you're intercepting the signal long before, or in different parts of the receiver circuitry, before or after filters in the circuit, so you can cut down the gain a little bit before it even gets into a filter circuit. So, static noise you're trying to get rid of, that the filter can eliminate, but may not be able to eliminate all of it. By catching that and being able to turn the gain down before it even gets into that stage, it can still effectively blank it out, and then the later stages can still amplify that signal back up, so, you still have good receive. But another kind of oddball thing for the vintage was a lot of radios, well, I don't want to say a lot of radios, but there were several radios that did have scan back in the day. So we're talking, late 70s into the early 80s. There were other radios that had the scan feature. The problem with them is, nowadays, they're kind of useless. Some of the SBE radios had scan. They scanned for an open channel. So, if you programmed in 5 channels and hit scan, any channel that did not have somebody talking on it would break squelch. Now, back in the day when all 40 channels were busy, and you were maybe trying to find an open channel to actually talk to somebody on, that may have been handy, but nowadays you want it to break squelch when you're on a busy channel. Well, it's selectable on this radio, so you can go from open to busy, and it will scan for either one, either an open channel or a busy channel. Clearing the channels is easy. Just take it out of memory. You hit the clear button. It'll wipe out all the channel memories. To load them in, you just change the channel, and then whatever channel you're on, if you want to add that to memory, you just hit the load button. Now, if you ever get one of these radios, be darn sure it comes with the microphone. notice there's nothing on this radio to control your channels. You can load channels, clear them, put memory, scan, scan buttons. There's no channel control on the radio. It's all done with the microphone. So if you do not have this microphone, you're kind of screwed. And it has a very, I guess you could say, a very large microphone plug with a lot of pins, because it does a lot. As well as being a changing your channels, it's also a power mic. So these do have power supplied to them. So another thing kind of hard to install, and that's even, I just before this radio, actually both of these two radios, kind of had a flood of Motorola's come in. The radio I worked on before these two was a CM540, which is the AM sideband radio. Now it doesn't have channel buttons. Basically it's the same microphone without these buttons, but it does have the power mic, and same thing, the power mic is powered by the radio. So just be careful if you're trying to add a different microphone to a Motorola radio. Be aware that the audio line on those actually has DC voltage on it. Because, yeah, the audio comes from the microphone into the radio, but on that exact same line, it's got DC voltage coming out of the mic jack and going to the microphone. So if you go hooking up the wrong microphone to one of these radios, you might let some smoke out on one end or the other. So just something to be careful. Now, like I say, I really like these radios. Now, they are a little bit of a pain in the butt to work on, like most Motorola's. They were built to, and I think I even said that in a previous video, these radios here, this model, they've never seemed to break. I've tried to buy these radios, beat up, horrible condition, just to have one for a parts chassis. Yeah, every time I get one, it works just fine. So, now, this one, now the customer said he had bought both of these. He had just stuck them on a dummy load, tried transmitting, and they both did work. But that was pretty much the extent of his testing them. You just, yep, it transmits, seems to work. He does have both microphones. Now, the other microphone did not have any modulation. Luckily, the mic cartridge was okay, but yeah, it was almost a coffin nail, because the wire that goes from the mic cartridge, and I'd almost need to have the microphone torn apart to show you, but you have a round plastic microphone cartridge, and it has a metal tab that slides up in on each side. And then those tabs have the wires soldered to them that go to the switch and into the radio. But those tabs also have the wire then that goes to the actual microphone cartridge. Those are tiny wires. I mean, we're talking, you just touch the wire basically and it just breaks off. They are literally I had to fix it with a microscope, but that wire had broken off of that metal post that's mounted on the side of it. So yeah, under the microscope with some tweezers, I was actually able to get a piece of wire in there to bridge, to reconnect the actual cartridge to its mating terminal, and so the microphone's actually working again, and that was actually the one on the other radio. But, internals. Now, you can't see a lot of the radio because it's underneath of this board here. This is your scan board. So, reflections really get me. I can see it a little bit better there. So here's your Eeprom. This actually controls not only the PLL chip, this also controls the channel display. But yeah, everything comes in on the microphone connector, comes down through this plug right here, and then that controls your channel up, your channel down. And like I say, if this Eeprom ever goes bad, yeah, the radio's a brick. Because it's a custom program on this Eeprom. And of course, it's not like you can pick up the phone and order one from Motorola nowadays. So, yeah, but like I say, all radios I've ever bought of these, I have several of these myself. I've never had one that was bad at all, period. Anything. They worked. So, the only things that's been done to this one was LED meter light. I replaced all the electrolytic capacitors in it. And an alignment. That's pretty much it. Because like I say, they were in really good working condition to start with. A few little minor problems, and they did need an alignment. Now this one, actually, the customer might not have realized it, because I think he said he only tried these on a dummy load. This thing would actually not transmit below, well, it would transmit, but on channels 19 and below, it was actually stuck. It was kind of stuck in between channel 19 to channel 20. I think possibly someone had come in this radio at some point in time, not having a service manual for it, trying to turn the power up on this, figured, well, there must be an adjustment point in here somewhere. I can get my golden screwdriver in here to get more power out of it. And they adjusted the adjustable transformer that's down through that hole right there in this shielded can. This is the VCO circuit. This is not the RF amplifier circuit. The core was out too far, and the VCO voltage was like over 3 volts too high. So once you got down to channel like around 20, once you tried to get below channel 20, it was stuck at 9 volts. It just couldn't tune anymore from that. So yeah, once I set the VCO voltage to 6 volts on channel 1 like it's supposed to be, all the transmit, it was transmitting and receiving on the proper frequencies then. So it wasn't any repair needed there, just part of the alignment to actually fix that. Now, like I said, somebody was trying, I assume, probably to try and screwdriver some power out of these. There's no screwdrivering to be done. If you've ever worked on Motorola's, not just this model, a lot of the other models they had, even the Mocats, there's a very limited number of adjustments in these radios. Now, don't get me wrong, there are adjustments. Now, actually, the Receive has a lot of them. And on these radios, again, very important to have the service manual. If you want this radio to receive properly the way it was intended and to be a very good working radio, don't go adjusting the receiver for maximum audio voltage, because that's usually on most radios what the service manual will tell you. Hook up a voltmeter, audio frequency voltmeter to your speaker, and adjust your receiver circuit adjustments for maximum voltage. You don't do that on these. There's a test point in here. You actually attach a voltmeter to it, turn your signal generator on, you turn it down to where it's around 4 volts, and then you do your adjustments, but you're actually adjusting for minimum voltage at that test point. And if you do it the way the service manual tells you, and then you come back and then take some measurements, like do a synad measurement, and then come back and readjust those for maximum audio frequency out the speaker, and check your synad measurement again, you'll find that it's worse. It actually works better if you do the adjustment the way that Motorola intended. And that's another thing. It's in the absolute last service manual that Sam's ever wrote. And this is actually not a Sam CB photo fact manual. You'll see it's the service data. So the manuals, the last 2 issues produced by Sam's, were actually just copies of the factory manuals. And the Motorola's no exception. So, the Motorola section here is just all of them. And they're hard to find. Very hard to find those manuals nowadays, especially those last 2 issues. But yeah. But anyhow, the transmit circuitry in this, there's absolutely no adjustment whatsoever. None at all. Don't even try, because take my word for it. You cannot take an adjustment tool anywhere in this radio and get more power out of it. There's nothing to be turned. Everything in the PA section of this radio is done with fixed inductors. Okay, so that means a fixed inductor, what I'm talking about, is a coil of wire. It's not tunable. It's just a coil of wire. It's an inductor. There is no adjustment to it. So don't even bother coming in here and you say, maybe this transformer here. And like I say, I get the feeling that's why somebody was tweaking on the VCO. They thought that might be RF, but no. So yeah, there is no adjustment. The only thing that can be done for the RF power on this, and it's actually in the service manual, is if the output power is above 3.6 watts, what you're supposed to do is there's actually a resistor in here. You're supposed to cut it out of the circuit, and it'll actually reduce the power. Other than that, that's basically the only adjustment you can do. You can knock the power down by taking a resistor out. That's it. There are a receiver. Of course, there's lots of adjustments in here for your VCO, like I say, the VCO voltage and your frequency adjustments and whatnot. But yeah, forget it on RF power. There's no screw turning in these things. Just let them work the way Motorola designed them, and you'll have a fantastic working radio. Like I say, I see these things. Every one I've ever seen that I thought was a parts radio, I bought it fairly cheap because they were horrendous looking radios. I have one that it's literally the faceplate's disintegrating because it was in a college. It actually has a serial number plate on the back of it from a college. And I assume that thing was probably in a service vehicle or something for decades. Yeah, the faceplate, the plastic, you just scratch it, it just crumbles. It's so brittle because it's baked in the sun probably on a dashboard for decades. You know something? Turn that radio on, it works just fine. And if you ever do need to work on one of these to get underneath of this board, it's fairly simple. Unplug this plug right here. There's 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4. Be careful with this ribbon cable. It doesn't actually have a plug on the end of it. It's just a piece of ribbon cable with about that much of the insulation stripped off of the wires, and then they go down into a header socket. But just pull that ribbon cable up out of that board, and then with those 4 screws removed, you'll be able to get this board up and out. You can get down in to service them. Now, electrolytic capacitors, most of the Motorola's, again, they're like that. They kind of did their own thing. You got to remember, they're a commercial radio company. So, their radios were basically their design and whatnot. They were designed, you can tell, by the same people that designed, like, their business band commercial radios. So, there's a mix of radial and axial lead electrolytic capacitors. Like here, right? There's a normal radial lead one. There you see there's one there. There's kind of hard to see, but there's another big one down in here, and there's actually 3. All 3 of them are actually there's one here, and one here. Yeah, there's 3. 1, 2, 3. Another one you can't see here. But those are axial leads, so lead on each end, and then the rest of them in the radio are radials. But yeah, it's kind of another one of those things. Motorola, they were oddball. They used a mix of axial and radial lead caps. But otherwise, like I say, really nice working radio. Nice to see in really good condition. Has the factory original microphones for both of them. This one, the covers the covers on the other one are in very good condition, but this, the covers for this one, this is the bottom, and that's another thing. The speakers actually face upward in these radios, which kind of makes more sense if you think about it. If you're mounting a radio under, down in your dashboard somewhere, where's the speaker on most radios? Facing down. What's down from the radio whenever you mount them usually? Your feet. Do you have ears on your feet? I don't. My ears are up on my head. So yeah, it kind of made sense to face the speaker up. They actually did that. Downfall of that is if you ever spill liquid on it, it's going to go right into the speaker. And, if it penetrates the paper of the speaker, it'll eventually get into the radio. But, yeah, other than that, but yeah, like I say, the top cover, man, it just doesn't get much better than that. A really, really nice, clean radio. And with both of these radios also had the factory original screws. They used, a hex head screw. Industrial, like I say, they're a business band radio company, so yeah, they weren't all about fancy, nice-looking screws, so it's always easy to tell if the screws that are in these are original. If they're hex head with a slot cut in them, yeah, they're probably factory then. But there you go. So there's not one, but 2 Motorola CM540 AM scanning CB radios restored and ready to go back into service.